Good morning, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Joanne Toronto.
And I'm Tom Matthews. And today, Joanne and I are diving into a series of what we see as a buyer's agent versus what a buyer might see. And we're going to focus today on systems. So, systems are heating and cooling, hot water tanks, roofing, windows, and kind of what we see as buyer agents and what we provide to buyers as they walk around a property to help them feel comfortable with a home that might become their forever home. So, Joanne, why don't you kick it off and talk to the audience about what we see?
So one of the things that as a buyer's agent, we want to determine when we're showing a property that we have a buyer for is we want to determine the age of all of these systems, right? So the age can sometimes be a hard thing to find out because it may predate the people who live there.
Right.
It may be somebody who's lived there for a long time, but just can't remember what year it was.
Yeah.
And, something that's 15 years old is a totally different than something that's 30 years old. And sometimes we have homeowners that just don't remember the difference of when they replace these items. So one of the things that we do when we're going through, if it's not disclosed to us up front, because as listing agents, we try to get this information and then disseminate it. But if it's not disclosed to us up front, there are a few techniques that we use to try to determine the age. And one technique is just looking at the unit and trying to identify what is the make and the producer of this piece of machinery. So Tom, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. So one of our favorite boilers to see in a house is a Wheel McLean. So what we like about the Wheel McLean boiler is they're really well built, but they also have a CP number on the side of the boiler. So if you look on the side, you'll see a CP number, and you can Google Wheel McLean CP lookup, and you can actually see when the boiler was built. So it was great. I was showing a house the other day to a buyer. I said, "Hey, this is a Wheel McLean Gold. Let me look it up." I looked it up. It was a 20-year-old boiler. So then it gave me the opportunity to tell buyers that boilers are typically have a life expectancy between 20 and 25 years. So what we say to them then is that, listen, this boiler is getting to the point where it's fully depreciated. It's met its life expectancy. It could last another 5 years. It could last another 15 years, or it could die tomorrow. And that's kind of like the risk you take on. But, one thing with boilers, depending on whether it's oil or gas, because oil doesn't burn as high as gas does. So that cast iron box inside those boilers can last a long time. So, we talk about this with buyers to help them, because one of the important things is when you're buying a home, paying a lot of money, putting a lot of down payment down, and you're not going to have a lot of excess capital. So we want to try to budget for what items might be coming down the road. Right. So Joanne, what about hot water tanks? What are the life expectancy? What are the age? Talk about that a little bit.
So hot water tanks are sometimes a little bit trickier to put a date on, but where their life expectancy is basically 10 to 12 years, people oftentimes remember generally when they replace their hot water tank because it's something that comes up more frequently. So one thing that I look at on a hot water tank is I look for the manufacturing sticker on the side of it. And oftentimes you will find a manufacturing date buried in there somewhere with a bunch of fine print. You may find the manufacturing date on the sticker itself. If you can't find that, what are some other things you could do? You can just look at the tank, look to see if there's any oxidization, meaning corrosion on the connections where the hot and cold water come in and out. You can also look at the pressure release valve to see if there's anything dripping there. You can also look around the base of the hot water tank and see if you see any rusting or corrosion down the base, any bulging on the sides. That's another indication that a hot water tank is at the end of its life. But here's the thing. Hot water tanks are unpredictable. A lot of people are changing to these tankless on-demand hot water systems. Number one, because they're more energy efficient, but number two, also because they don't hold a big tank of water in your basement. Right. So for anybody who has had a hot water tank that lets go, when that hot water tank lets go, that could be, if you have an 80-gallon tank, that could be 80 gallons of hot water just rushing out of your tank and flooding your basement. Yep. Now, I don't say this to freak people out, because if you stay on top of it and your hot water tank is maybe it's not recharging as quickly, maybe you're running out of hot water faster than you used to. These are all good signs for you as a homeowner that you may be approaching the life expectancy of your hot water tank. And I can give you this tip. If anything drips out of your hot water tank, replace it.
Yeah. I've replaced 2 of them in my house. When I moved in my house, it was like 8 years old. I just replaced it. I've been in my house 9 years. I just replaced it because, like Joanne just said, the only time you know when those things go is when you have water in your basement. So time to replace. Be proactive.
Yeah.
So other systems we look at AC units and air handlers, and then the roof. The roof, I think, is a big one because a lot of people walk up to the house, they look at the roof, and they continue on inside because all they care about is the kitchen and the bathrooms. But roof replacement right now is 15 to 30 grand. So it might be something you want to pay attention to. So what we look at is, what is the grade of the shingle? Do we have a 2-tab shingle? Do we have an architectural grade shingle? Those materials, if you see a 2-tab shingle, that roof is at the end of its life because they don't use those anymore. Those were used like 25 years ago. If you see architectural grade, you might have between a 30-year and a 50-year roof.
Yep.
So the next thing you want to look at, is there any lichen or mold growth? And do you have any shingles that are raised up? Because as they become more brittle, the wind can get under them and starts to raise them up. That indicates that the roof is on the later side of its life expectancy. Not to say it has to be replaced tomorrow. There's one school of thought that people won't replace their roof till it starts to leak. There are other people that want to replace it because it just doesn't look that good. But, it's just really important to be mindful and to know what you're looking at.
Yep.
Because if you don't know what you're looking at and your agent just opens the front door and says, hey, this is the living room. Well, yeah, thanks. You could be missing on things that are really important and that what we take a lot of great care in, particularly over the last 36 months. The market's been so competitive. So many buyers have not had the ability to have home inspections. There've been 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 offers. And we really had to step that up. What I like when we're in a more normalized environment is being able to educate a buyer about a house. And then when they hear it from a home inspector, they're not freaked out.
Yeah, knowing what you're walking into when you get to a home inspection is, 99% of the battle, right? Exactly. Then you can focus on any of the things that you didn't know.
Exactly.
But something else that I look for when I'm looking at roofs is if I'm on a second floor bedroom and there's a roof line that I can see, like maybe a roof line that's over the garage, or maybe I can look out the front and I can see a roof line over like a front portico or something. The things that I look for are, what do the granules look like on the asphalt shingle itself? Because as your roof ages, it's going to start losing some of those granules. And that's a natural thing. That's the way it's designed to wear. But you can look inside the gutters, right? So if you look inside the gutters and you see a ton of granules in the gutters, you know that it's starting to lose the granules. You also can look for areas where maybe people have hacked ice dams on the roof.
Yep.
We always discourage people from hacking ice dams off their roof. I know it sounds logical, but it's not a good idea. So you can look at to see if there's any damage to those shingles at the very bottom of the roof. So just more ways that you can see the shingle up close is great. A home inspector is going to use a telescope thing to look at it and get real close to it. But we also like to look at how does the flashing look around any chimneys? How do the edges look, the drip edges? And all of these things combined can give us, an idea of where we think the roof is in its lifespan.
Right. And just giving buyers the best expectations so that they can have a really enjoyable time in their new home as they move into that property. So, we're going to continue this series for buyers to understand what role the buyer agent should have, because so many people just think it's touring me, showing me the house, writing me the offer, but there's so much more that goes into it. And Joanne and I want to dive into that in this series over the next couple of weeks and months ahead. So I want to thank you for watching another edition of Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Tom Matthews.
And I'm Joanne Toronto. Cheers.